The majority of Americans keep their savings in a traditional account, where only 18% utilize a high-yield savings account. Now, high-yield savings accounts are a great way to earn extra interest on your savings, but there are 5 things that you must know about them, and the first thing is their taxes. For any of you using traditional banks like Chase or Bank of America that barely earn any interest at all, you probably haven't even thought about tax considerations. But since a high-yield savings account is meant for your savings to actually make some money from it, you now have to be aware of the taxes. Which, just so you know, the interest that is earned from high-yield savings accounts is counted as ordinary taxable income by the IRS, and it's essentially a 1099 INT form that's issued by the banks for interest that is earned over $10, which needs to be reported on your federal tax return. Which currently the taxes on ordinary income is between the range of 10 to 37%. Let's say that you have $10,000 in a high-yield savings account earning you 4% interest. That would end up being $400 reported as additional income on your taxes. And to add on that, let's say that you are married filing jointly and report $125,000 in taxable income. That would be at the 22% marginal tax rate. That means that if you did gain the $400 from interest in the high-yield savings account, that it would be stacked atop your earnings, where the income would now be taxed at 22%, $88 going to taxes. It may seem as though taxes just keep following you around. Now, obviously that's not ideal, and you may want to go out and buy more tax-efficient savings tools or investments, but if you plan to have this high-yield savings account for an emergency fund or short-term savings goals, then it would still make sense to use it, because you're still going to be making much more interest than if you were to use a traditional savings account. All in all, the fact that you are being taxed on this income just means that now you're able to actually make more money than you were before. So for the example I mentioned, you gained $400 from interest, $88 is paid in taxes. That leaves you with $312 of your own to use on whatever you want. And if you're curious, the amount that you're going to get paid is calculated based on the amount that you have in the account each day. So the balance compounds the interest daily, but you're not going to see that because you're actually going to get paid the interest on a monthly basis. If you were to instead use a traditional bank account like Chase or Bank of America, you'd be able to avoid the taxes. But that's because you'd be getting less than $10. In fact, that $10,000 at a 0.01% interest means that you would have earned a solid $1 when compared with the example I just showed you of $400, then after tax is $322. All in all, there is a reason why Chase and Wells Fargo and all these companies have a minimum required amount you need in the account, because they're pretty much just using your savings to go and make them a lot more money. So now that you understand the taxes, the next thing you must know about are the rates that you will earn. As of making this video, the rates that you can earn with high-yield savings accounts are anywhere in the range of 4 to 5%, and some even higher, which is great for an emergency fund or any short-term savings that you need the cash liquid. Which, by the way, having your cash liquid pretty much means that you have instant access to use this cash anytime that you need. But although you can get between that 4 to even up to 5.5% of yields with high-yield savings accounts right now, you have to understand that these rates, they're not going to last forever. You see, the reason that the rates are so high right now is because the Federal Reserve raised interest rates back in early 2022 to fight against inflation. And because of that, in order for banks to also compete with other banks, they're going to increase their rates as well. This is really important to know because in the next 6 months, a year, 2 years, or even 3 years, who knows? I'm not Jerome Powell. But what I do know is that as interest rates get cut by the Federal Reserve, the banks will follow the same path, and the rates you will earn on your savings accounts will go down as well. So whether it be 1, 2, or 3% completely depends on the economy, but at least with high-yield savings accounts, you're always going to be able to get higher interest than you would with a traditional one like Chase or Bank of America at 0.01%. So all in all, right now, if you see a high-yield savings account giving out a 5% yield or whatever the number is, that number is not going to last forever. But because high-yield savings accounts are FDIC insured, if you need short-term cash to be safe and liquid for things like an emergency fund, wedding, vacation, down payment for a house, then the use of this fund would still benefit you. In fact, some accounts will actually allow you to separate your savings into different categories, which helps organize your savings goals even more while still earning interest. All right, now that you understand the rates, it's important to understand that high-yield savings accounts are not meant for building wealth. You see, no matter what, earning even up to a 5% yield, which is great, you know now that that's not gonna last forever. But it's more so the fact that you can earn much more by doing other things with your money. If the money is not purely short-term savings, then you can utilize the money in much better areas, such as investing into yourself, starting a business, or simply investing into the stock market. Just to give you a proper understanding on why this is a huge mistake to avoid, let's just say that you have $25,000 extra that you don't know what to do with. If you put that in a high yield savings account that, let's just say on average over 30 years can earn you a 2% yield, that $25,000 would end up being $45,000 after 30 years, barely keeping up with inflation. Looking at the bright side of things, it's at least better than what Chase or Bank of America would have earned you, because you would have made a mega $75 over 30 years. It's actually terrible. But to emphasize the point of this, let's say that you invest into the stock market. You want to keep it as simple as possible. So let's just say that you get a total US stock market index fund, and based on the average, let's say has a 8% return rate, your $25,000 would now be worth $251,000. Could you just imagine if you were able to just continuously put money into that? Just for fun, if you did $7,000 per year, that means you would have put in $235,000, and because of that power of compounding the interest from investments, you would have gained $809,000 from growth alone, leading to a portfolio worth over $1 million. So unless you were using a high yield savings account for the proper reasons, investing your money could provide you substantial returns to allow you to build wealth and actually be able to retire much earlier. In fact, to retire by never investing and leaving your money underneath the bed or in a traditional savings account, the likeliness of you actually being able to successfully retire is nearly impossible. Which, if you were to do that, it's even worse because your money would actually be losing value to inflation, eating away its value over time. In fact, in the 1980s, a cup of coffee cost 70 cents, where in 2021, the price is now $3. With that said, whether you have a high yield savings account or not, you need to understand the requirements. Now, many accounts vary with the exact requirements, but you have to be aware that some of them require a minimum balance in order to get their advertised yields. For example, on a savings account like CIT Bank, they require a balance of $5,000 or more in order to get their 5% yield, which if you don't have that balance, you'll only earn a 0.25% yield. Most of the high yield savings accounts don't have a minimum balance requirement, but it's still important to check these things before you actually go and sign up. Which, by the way, the amount of accounts that you can sign up for or use at the same time, it doesn't matter. There's no credit score impact or anything like that. So with the accounts that give a cash bonus or extra yields for only a certain amount of months, there's no requirements on the amount of accounts that you can sign up for and use. But also understand that with some of these accounts, there is a minimum required amount that you have to deposit in order to get their advertised yields. I'll use CIT Bank again as an example, as they state you can get started with as little as $100. But again, most high yield savings accounts don't actually require this. Also understand that some high yield savings accounts require you to be above 18, but there are custodial options if you look into it and have a parent or legal guardian sign you off. Another requirement that you may see that's not super common is requiring a direct deposit with an employer. This is really important to understand because the only high yield savings account that is giving out a cash bonus, which is SoFi, where you can get up to a $325 cash bonus for signing up, but to get that, you are required to set up a direct deposit with an employer. This means a recurring deposit of regular income is set to go to your SoFi account through a qualified source of payroll, pension, or government benefit payments. So if the direct deposit is not set up through an employer, government agency, or the alternative of depositing more than $5,000 into the account within the specific time period, you will not receive the cash bonus, nor will you get to earn their 4.6% yield. Now, I personally do use this account with my savings. I also invest on their platform with dividend investments, which they do have a great platform, but if requirements like that don't work out for you, then you're going to want to look elsewhere. But I will mention that if you are interested to learn more about SoFi and their cash bonus, to check out the link I have in the description below, which also helps me out and is greatly appreciated. But knowing that, those are the main requirements that you need to be aware of. The last thing you need to know about are their features. You see, with high yield savings accounts, the reason that they can offer higher interest than traditional savings accounts for the most part is because they have lower overhead costs. The reason for this is that most of these banks are online banks, or they have very few branch locations, and that allows them to save on expenses like rent and utilities. And although there are other factors to consider, if you're one that's not tech savvy at all, or you would just prefer to have in-branch locations to go to, A high yield savings account like SoFi wouldn't be the right one for you, where one like Capital One may be an option to consider. But I will say that signing up will literally take you less than 5 minutes, and managing the account is the exact same, whether it's Chase or SoFi. They're all pretty easy to use, and most of them have similar style apps that you can install. But a negative to many high yield savings accounts is that using an ATM to get cash will be more difficult than a traditional bank like Chase or Wells Fargo. But I will say some high yield savings accounts do provide a debit card, where if you consider joining one like SoFi, they also have over 55,000 no-fee ATMs worldwide. Or if you don't use the debit card, you could simply just freeze the card and then use whatever traditional bank you wanted instead. But another option I would recommend looking into if you are interested would be Capital One's checking and savings, where you can also get a debit card and a competitive yield that they currently offer a 4.25% with their 360 performance savings account. But if you are interested in looking into SoFi, you can currently get up to a 4.6% yield, get paid up to 2 days earlier while having no account fees, and have FDIC insurance up to $2 million. So if you want to learn more about that and get started, don't forget to check out the link I have in the description below. Which, while you're at it, if you want to learn more about high yield savings accounts or some of the best places to place your money, I'll leave other relevant videos I created in the description below. And as always, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notifications button for future content like this.